Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like if you enjoy it. Your support means a lot to us and helps the channel grow. Thank you so much. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Power of Silence. Have you ever considered that silence can be far more potent than any words? Perhaps at this moment, you think of silence as simply the absence of sound. But Machiavelli, the great Italian philosopher and political strategist, showed us that silence is a strategy, a way to maintain power and control. In his works, it's easy to find traces of how crucial it is to control what we say and what we don't say. He believed that in the world of politics and power, where every word can become a weapon, silence isn't just an empty pause, but a tool capable of putting an opponent at a disadvantage. When Machiavelli talks about politics, he doesn't advise being open and honest about your intentions. On the contrary, he asserts that a true ruler, one who wants to hold on to power, must mask their real intentions. And this is where a crucial point lies. Silence in these games becomes key. But what do you think? Why? Imagine you're in a complex situation, in negotiations or a political conflict. If you talk too much, you reveal your hand. It's as if you're showing your opponent your chess hand without letting them make the first move. Silence, on the other hand, allows you to maintain a strategic advantage. Silence isn't perceived as weakness. It's perceived as unpredictability. It creates space for maneuver and puts your opponents in a position where they start guessing what you're thinking, what you're going to do. And, the less a person knows about your intentions, the fewer opportunities they have to control your actions. Machiavelli writes in The Prince, "The one who acts openly quickly loses the advantage. And you, if you think about it, don't want to be the one losing the advantage, do you? Have you ever noticed how people start to get anxious when you're silent, especially in moments when they expected a response or reaction from you? In business, in relationships, in negotiations, silence makes others feel uneasy. You create an atmosphere of uncertainty, which forces others to make moves that are advantageous to you. For example, when you're offered a deal and you remain silent for a few seconds, not answering immediately, your interlocutor starts to wonder, is he thinking something over? Why is he silent? This pause isn't just silence. It's a space for the opponent to reveal their cards, giving you new opportunities to maneuver. You're not speaking, but you're in control. You can use this silence to buy time, to win in negotiations, to make people show their weaknesses, or, conversely, to reveal their desires without even realizing it. Imagine you're in a conversation with a colleague. They've started criticizing your work, and you could immediately begin to justify yourself. Speak out. Try to explain why you did it this way or that. But what if you just remain silent? Just listen to them and don't immediately respond. What happens? The colleague continues to speak. They might even start to justify themselves or intensify their words. And now you already have the situation under control without saying a word. You see, silence in such situations isn't always a sign of weakness or insecurity. It's rather a strategy through which you demonstrate your power over the situation. The less you speak, the more you control, creating space for maneuver and making those around you think you're much stronger than you actually are. Chapter 2. The Lion and the Fox. Silence as Mask and Threat. Have you ever considered that silence can be associated with two opposing archetypes? Machiavelli, although he didn't use such metaphors, often depicted two types of personalities that can be useful in the struggle for power. These types symbolize the power of silence: the lion and the fox. Let's take the lion. The lion is a symbol of might and power. With the lion's silence, everything is straightforward. The lion doesn't have to explain its actions. It remains silent because its power is obvious, and silence in its case is simply an assertion that it can do something without resorting to action. It is silent because its presence is enough to create an atmosphere of fear and respect. When you encounter a lion, you know that any of its movements is already a threat. Now imagine the fox. The fox is a symbol of cunning. The fox's silence isn't a consequence of its physical strength. On the contrary, it uses silence as a way to conceal its true intentions, its cards. It remains silent because its silence creates uncertainty. the people around it start to wonder what it's plotting. And in this uncertainty, it finds its strength. The silence of the lion and the silence of the fox are not the same. The lion uses silence to assert its power. The fox uses silence to deceive and hide its true goals. And in this lies a lesson for you. Every time you face a difficult situation, silence can be your way to take a position, either as a lion or as a fox. If you act like a lion, silence becomes your confident stance, your way of showing that you don't need explanations. You are silent because your strength is evident, and you don't need to justify yourself. This helps you establish authority and respect, even if you don't say a word. If, however, you choose to be a fox, silence is a way to keep people in the dark. They don't know what you're really planning, and you, in turn, can prepare your move while they anxiously guess. This isn't just a pause in the conversation. It's a way to make people act in the direction that benefits you. The silence of the lion and the fox is a conscious choice. It's not just not speaking, but a strategy where every moment of silence is justified and aimed at achieving a specific goal. This is where Machiavelli's mastery lies. He understood that true power isn't always an open struggle, but often a subtle game of silence and hidden intentions. How can you use this in your life? Sometimes, in complex or tense situations, it's helpful to choose the role of the lion. Think about a situation where you need to assert your position when people start to doubt your strength. At such moments, you can simply remain silent and confident. People will feel your power through the silence. On the other hand, if you find yourself in a situation where you need to act cunningly, use the role of the fox. Silence at this moment will give you the time and space to prepare, think through your next step, and guide everyone around you in the right direction. There are moments in life when the wisest thing is not to react hastily, but to be silent and wait. So, depending on the circumstances, you can choose whether to be a lion or a fox. Silence in these cases isn't just an unexpressed thought, it's an instrument of power. Chapter 3. Silence as a powerful tool. Consider how often silence has a more profound impact on you than words. Imagine sitting in a room where tension hangs in the air. Two people are talking, and one of them is silent. This silent person may not be saying anything, but their presence alone creates an atmosphere. This isn't just silence, it's a psychological weapon that operates on a subconscious level. Machiavelli perfectly understood the power of silence in the context of managing people. When you are silent at a certain moment, you force others to think, to guess, and therefore, to lose control. Silence becomes a way to assume psychological superiority. Everyone starts wondering, what is really going on in your head? Let's take a real-life situation. You are in negotiations where your opponent talks a lot, tries to convince you, to put pressure on you. You remain silent, giving them space. This moment of silence becomes extremely important. The opponent starts to feel uneasy. They can't read your reaction, and this puts them in a vulnerable position. They begin to assume that you are hiding something important, that you are much more unpredictable than they thought. This phenomenon perfectly illustrates the psychological nature of silence. It makes you enigmatic, and a person who lacks information about you automatically begins to feel insecure. This mechanism can be used in a variety of situations. For example, if someone tries to pressure you, accuse you, and you don't respond immediately, you create a pause. A pause in which the other person starts to scroll through different versions of your answer in their head, worries about what you are thinking, doubts their approach. You don't speak, but your silence is already making them work to your advantage. This is a powerful way to control the flow of communication, leaving yourself room to maneuver. Silence is also a means of psychological defense. When you face a difficult situation, it's important to understand that silence at this moment can become your shield. You don't reveal your weaknesses. You don't give the opponent the opportunity to manipulate you, because they cannot predict your reaction. All this happens not because you are restraining yourself for some moral reasons, but because you understand the power of the unknown. By being silent, you force others to lose control. And this is what gives you the opportunity to dictate the rules. In social life, Silence operates according to the same laws. Sometimes, when someone tries to involve you in a conflict, to reproach you, you can simply not react. Don't answer accusations immediately, but take a pause. Silently analyze the situation while your interlocutor continues. This moment of being out of the game is your victory. You show that you are in control of the situation, not the one trying to provoke you. Silence can be especially useful in the social games we are constantly in. In these games, knowing what is happening in other people's heads, what motivates them, becomes much more important than simply wanting to respond immediately. When you are silent, you become an enigma, and any enigma always evokes interest and respect. Machiavelli observed that those who are silent, who are not in a hurry to show their hand, often win in the long run. They control the perception of those around them, force others to act according to their rules, and this gives them power. Applying this principle in everyday life, you can maintain inner harmony in situations where others try to throw you off balance. Let silence be your first step, not out of weakness, but out of strength. You become the one who controls the context, who remains independent of external circumstances. Chapter 4. Manipulation through silence, creating control effortlessly. Now, let's consider silence as a tool for manipulation. In a world where everyone wants something from others, where negotiations and agreements are commonplace, silence becomes a powerful instrument of control. Machiavelli, although he didn't explicitly name it as such, perfectly understood that often you don't need to do anything to influence those around you. It's enough simply to know how to be silent at the right moment. Here's a simple example. You're in a meeting where everyone is discussing a project. One participant starts voicing their ideas, actively proposing something. You remain silent. You say nothing. You don't try to prove you're right. You just observe. You watch as people subconsciously start seeking your approval or disapproval. Without words, you establish control over the situation, forcing people to watch your every move, every glance. This is the moment of manipulation. Silence here works as a takeover of control. You don't take any obvious steps, but your silence makes others wary. This makes your opinion significant, even if you haven't said anything. And then, at some point, when people have started to get anxious because of your silence, you can say a single word, and it will carry immense weight. At that moment, everyone in the room is already under your control. Machiavelli, speaking of rulers, often mentioned how important it is not to show your cards. He advised leaders to be reserved in their statements because revealing your intentions always gave others the opportunity to counteract them. Silence in this context isn't just a way to keep your thoughts to yourself. It's a way to make people think you might be dangerous, and they start acting in your interests. Think about this in relation to everyday life, in relationships, at work, in any negotiation situations. Silence can be your strongest move. You say nothing, and everything that happens around you starts to work in your favor. People begin to assume that you are hiding some strong trump cards, that your goals are much more ambitious than they thought. You can use silence to convey a sense of power. When you are silent, you create a space in which others begin to feel insecure. They start to talk more, offer more, trying to fill the void. And it is at this moment that you, silently, control the flow of communication. An example from everyday life. In a conflict with a colleague, friend, or partner, it's not always necessary to immediately justify yourself or argue. Silence allows you to look at the situation from the outside, to understand what everyone really wants. And if you open your mouth at the right time, your words will be much more weighty than if you had spoken from the very beginning. Silence, as a weapon of manipulation, can be used to create a sense of psychological superiority. You don't show weakness. You don't give up control. And at the same time, people start to change their behavior in your direction. The goal isn't for you to become a silent person, but for you to know how to use silence as an instrument of power. So, the next time you find yourself in a situation where your every step and every word can be perceived as aggression, think about how silence can become your ally. It will work towards your goals much more powerfully than any active response. Chapter 5. Silence as a way to avoid conflicts. Conflict is an inevitable part of human life, whether at work, at home, or in public places. However, as you know, it's not always important for a conflict to develop. Often, on the contrary, it's crucial to stop it in time. This is where silence comes into play as a strategic tool, allowing you to avoid open confrontation. Imagine that someone on the street starts insulting you. You could respond to these attacks, start arguing, defending yourself, but instead, you simply remain silent. This creates an effect of surprise for the aggressor, who, not receiving a reaction, may soon realize that their attacks are useless. Your strength here lies in the fact that you don't get involved in the conflict. You don't allow emotions to control the situation. In everyday life, silence helps maintain control over yourself and the situation. For example, in a conversation with colleagues or friends when a dispute arises, instead of engaging in heated debates, you can remain silent, preventing the conflict from developing. This doesn't mean you're yielding, but you're creating space for reflection, for the situation to calm down. When people don't get the expected reaction, they begin to perceive your position as something more stable than emotional outbursts. An example from personal life. Someone criticizes you. Do you respond with silence? Or, for example, do you not react to their actions? This may sound unfair, but in reality, silence is often a strategy that helps avoid destructive words and actions. When you begin to understand that silence is not just passivity but an active decision not to react, you find that there are far fewer unnecessary conflicts in your life. Silence in this context helps not only preserve your dignity, but also prevents the aggressor from getting the fruit of the struggle they so desire. In everyday situations, you can use silence to stop the violence of words and emotions, to prevent the aggressor from escalating the situation. This way, you protect yourself, strengthen your position, and keep the situation under your control. Chapter 6. Silence as strategic patience. Patience is key to any victory, whether in business, relationships, or personal struggles. But patience doesn't always boil down to passive waiting. Sometimes, patience is active silence that gives you the opportunity to prepare for the right moment. Silence, as a form of patience, becomes one of the most important strategies for achieving goals, especially if you know when to be silent and when to act. Often, we strive for immediate results. We want everything to happen quickly and at once. But in life, as in politics, a waiting period is sometimes necessary. Silence helps us win this time. When we don't immediately reveal our intentions, don't immediately say what we think, we get the opportunity to carefully observe the situation, gather information, and draw conclusions. This gives us an advantage because everyone around us starts acting based on information we haven't yet disclosed. Imagine negotiations in which you are participating. You could immediately lay all your cards on the table, but it's much wiser to leave some information for later. As long as your opponents don't know all your moves, they are forced to build their strategy without having the full picture. Thus, silence at this moment is not just inaction but a strategic move that helps buy time for more informed decisions. Silence allows you not to rush to conclusions. If you immediately started acting, answering questions, or voicing your ideas, you would immediately limit your options. Silence helps find the best moment to emerge, to take action that will have the greatest impact. Sometimes, in the process of observation, you see the situation unfold in the desired direction on its own. This is the manifestation of patience through silence. Machiavelli often emphasized the importance of endurance and patience. In his philosophy, the moment when you don't need to act hastily is important. It's like in chess. Sometimes the best move is the one that is not made immediately, but waits for the right moment. This is the power of silence. You don't always need to express your thoughts right away. Sometimes, silence provides an opportunity to react more reasonably and thoughtfully. You can apply this principle in your life, for example, at work. If you need to make an important decision or untangle a complex knot, you shouldn't rush. Silence at this moment is an opportunity to cool down, assess all the details, and make a more balanced decision. Or for example, in interpersonal relationships, Sometimes silence allows you to give another person time to think, reduce tension, and come to a more productive conversation. Silence as strategic patience is the ability to wait for the moment when you are ready to act, not just rushing into decisions. It's the art of being in the right place at the right time, ready for the most important move you can make without losing control of the situation. Chapter 7. The Psychology of Silence. Silence is not merely the absence of words. It has a profound impact on perception, both yours and that of those around you. When you are silent, you often create a sense of uncertainty in others, and this evokes interest, respect, or even fear in them. This isn't just a game with pauses. It's a real tool for influencing how you are perceived. Imagine a situation where you are involved in a conversation but suddenly stop talking, leaving a pause. How does the other person perceive this? In most cases, people begin to feel insecure, and this immediately changes the dynamics of the interaction. It's like a game of chess where you don't rush to make a move but give your opponent time to dwell on each word, its meaning. Silence is not passivity but a way to control perception. When you are silent, you create space for others' interpretations, and people begin to project their thoughts and feelings onto your silence. This allows you to remain enigmatic, and this quality can be a powerful tool of influence. You don't reveal all your cards at once. You leave some mystery. People begin to perceive your silence as a signal that you are important, that there is something more behind you than just words. This is no longer just a conversation. It's a game with perception that works in your favor. The psychology of silence is related to how people react to a lack of information. When you are silent, you leave room for speculation. You don't give your interlocutor a precise answer, and they begin to fill this void with their own interpretations. This can be useful if you want to manage people's expectations and reactions. Silence, in this way, elevates your status. If you are constantly talking, you are perceived as an ordinary conversationalist. But if you are silent, especially at moments when everyone expects an answer, your figure begins to look more important and mysterious. People begin to respect your silence because it becomes part of your strategy. It creates the feeling that you are not ready to share everything you know, that your thoughts and actions are something valuable, and there is power behind them. This doesn't mean that silence should be used in every situation. It's important to understand the context. Silence will work when it is appropriate. When you are silent at the right moment, you don't just control the conversation. You control the perception of the entire situation. Take, for example, the dynamics of communication in an office. When you are silent in an argument, it immediately changes the atmosphere. Your colleagues begin to pay attention to your every word because they understand that you don't speak without a reason. This increases your influence, especially if you are silent in response to aggressive behavior or excessive chatter. You don't engage in a fruitless discussion but maintain calm and strategic distance. Silence is not just the absence of words. It's a way to change perception, show your strength and confidence, and make others think. And if you learn to use this silence wisely, you can significantly increase your power in any interactions. Chapter 8. Silence as the Final Move. Silence as the final move is the moment when everything that could have been said and done has already been said and done. It's the finish line after which further intervention loses its meaning. Silence becomes that powerful tool that requires no action but simultaneously concludes the process and emphasizes your influence and strength. Unlike words, which can weaken your position, silence confirms your strategic independence and ability not to react to irritants. If at a certain point you choose not to speak, it becomes your powerful stance. You choose not to interfere, not to justify, and not to excuse yourself. Your choice to leave silence instead of an answer demonstrates your inner confidence and invulnerability. In politics and in life, silence often becomes a signal that you possess something important, but are not obligated to share it with those around you. This silence becomes the final move when the entire dynamic of the situation changes not through words, but through your ability to remain silent. History offers examples where silence saved lives, and sometimes even guided entire countries. One striking example is the silence of great leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, where his silence became a protest, while words would not have been as powerful. Or Winston Churchill, who was in no hurry to answer questions, leaving opponents in uncertainty. So it is in life. Silence is an opportunity to seize the initiative. For example, if someone at work tries to provoke your emotions, or in an argument tries to catch you off guard, you don't have to react. Your pause, your silence at this moment, is your ability to control the situation, not allowing the opponent's words or actions to affect your state. You don't need to justify yourself or engage in meaningless discussions. You are silent because it is the best response. Silence in such situations does not mean weakness. On the contrary, it emphasizes your ability not to get involved in what you don't need. It's a demonstration of strength, confidence, and self-control. You give yourself space to make decisions not based on emotions but at the right moment. And this silence can become your trump card when it's necessary to make a decision last. In conclusion, strategic silence is a powerful tool that can and should be used in a variety of life situations. It allows you not only to maintain inner harmony and control, but also to manage the perception of those around you. The strategy of silence, proposed by Machiavelli, remains relevant in today's world, where we are all under the pressure of communication and information noise. Silence becomes a protective mechanism that not only helps avoid conflicts and manipulations, but also gives us space to make decisions and maintain our power in situations of uncertainty. By using silence in your life, you create room for maneuver. You don't react immediately, but at the same time, you remain at the center of events, controlling their course. Strategic silence allows you to be out of the game but still win it, remaining the one who ultimately makes the decision. So, both in life and in politics or business, silence is not just the absence of words. It's a choice that demonstrates strength and strategic mastery. The one who knows how to be silent understands that you don't always need to speak to be heard. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Your support truly helps us grow. We appreciate it so much.